Political analysts are giving a whole bunch of reasons about why Donald Trump won with the margins he did and what Democrats need to do and how they need to change to improve their results in future elections. And I think they're largely getting it way wrong.
They're wrong.
They're so off, and I'm worried about it. If we don't have one of the worst case scenarios where democracy completely backslides under Trump, and we do have fair and free elections, I'm worried about them being wrong and not really being able to come back in the near future because of that. I'm going to read a quote here from a New York Times article as an example of what I'm talking about. So Matt Bennett, who is the executive vice president for public affairs at a centrist think tank, says, "The one way to beat a right-wing populist is through the center. You must become the party that is more pragmatic, reasonable, and more sane."
Wrong.
That's where we have to go.
Wrong.
And why was it wrong? Because that's obviously exactly what they were trying to do. That is what every step that Kamala Harris took was trying to be. She almost never talked about climate change. She said, "I wouldn't ban fracking." She was like, she even said on abortion, if a bill to restore Roe v. Wade comes to my desk, I would sign it. She didn't even go further than that, right? She didn't even try to push to be like, I would take executive action.
Yeah, she didn't say that she was going to build abortion clinics on federal land, which she absolutely has some authority to do. She didn't know that. Okay, so she ran the most centrist campaign. Did she have great policies in there, middled throughout? Yes. Were they inspiring? Hell no.
Not at all.
They weren't inspiring. I got no vision from Kamala Harris. I could project my vision, but I got no concept of what she wanted this country to look like 10, 20, 30 years from now. She gave me nothing for me to grasp onto. She gave me tax incentives. I love that, Kamala. That's great to give those tax incentives. Give me something more. She ran on healthcare saying that Donald Trump was going to undo the Affordable Care Act. Well, you know what, Kamala? There's a lot of people that are just not happy with the way that the ACA has worked out for them. Maybe you could say that you want to expand Medicare to cover dental and vision care. Yeah. Maybe you want to say that you want to expand Medicare to people who are over 55 and up instead of 65 and up.
Or I mean, go big. Go universal health care.
Say
right? Medicare
for all. Say if you are sick, the government will help you.
Yes.
You will not be left alone.
Yes.
We are in this together. You're not going to be left alone. No. And it's unfortunate because Donald Trump is able to get out there and he's able to go out and sell candy and give everyone a tax cut, saying that he's going to get rid of the income tax and replace it with a tariff. And then Kamala's over here like, actually, you can't do that. You should only give $6,000 a month for when a child is born, and then $3,600 until that child is 16, and $3,000. Shut up. No one is going to listen to you. No one's going to care. That's not enough. You have to give a vision. And she failed to give a vision.
Yes. It's what you're saying about no one's going to care. It's just not enough for anyone to care about. And we've been talking about the desire to keep politics boring. And I mean, a huge argument that we would make to kind of a logically minded person would be Kamala Harris will keep politics boring, and that will be good for your life.
Yeah.
You won't have to worry about significant changes to your life because politics are mostly going to stay status quo with the attempt to incrementally move things in a positive direction. The concern, at least from us, was always major negative consequences of a Trump presidency.
Yep.
But I want to talk about, I want to get into the overall thesis of why this is wrong.
Yeah, it's so deeply flawed.
The main thing is it is based on a framework that was built in a past version of American politics where policy mattered.
Yeah.
Your stance on policy mattered. The people heard the story that you were telling them about what your policy would do for the country, and they made decisions on who they wanted to elect based on that. And I think we are in a different environment now.
That does not exist.
I don't think that environment exists. And there are a few reasons for that, okay? One is the lack of power that facts have, right? And it's because of social media, basically, because everyone consumes most of their information from social media, and they get it in a bubble. And since they get it in a bubble, either facts can be spun in any way that a pundit wants to spin them, and so a right-wing pundit can look at the objectively, factually great economy we have and say that it's terrible, or they can make up things of their own. Like they just don't need to work with normal facts.
And the people who spread this misinformation, who spread the false facts or whatever, and the misinterpretations, they make a ton of money off doing that.
Yes.
They make so much money. And
and power.
Telling you the facts is super boring
Yes.
to listen to. And it is not profitable.
Totally.
Okay. And so when someone comes out and they post their show and they're talking about how this person was at this P. Diddy party and it gets a lot of clicks, it gets a lot of views, it makes you think that your enemies are pedophiles, and then bam, now you're a right-wing conservative activist.
Sure. And they can just they can say whatever they want because they don't care about the basis in facts. And so like this is where So basically facts aren't mattering as much, and if facts aren't mattering, then actual policy isn't mattering, because if facts don't matter, then it doesn't matter what will change the facts, right? We're not working in a framework of like X action causes Y outcome.
Yes. They don't care that Trump's economic plan would reduce Social Security Trust Fund by 2031.
They don't care or believe it.
They don't, that's the other thing.
Yes.
If you told them, they wouldn't believe you.
Yes.
They would question your sources. Which is fine to question sources. But then even if you showed them, they would never ever believe you.
Exactly. And so, but this now needs to be joined by another point, which is like, why are people willing to be so skeptical? And part of it is the information environment, but part of it is also that we have been blessed with boring politics for as long as we have. You can kind of go back to George Bush and starting the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And there were people in 2004 when Bush got reelected that were devastated because they specifically had loved ones that were going to have to go fight in a useless war because Bush was reelected. But in 2008, in 2012, in 2016, because we were lucky about the not horrible implications of a first Trump presidency, and in 2020, the results of these past 4 elections have all been pretty ho-hum. Like, we haven't seen a ton of change to individuals' like personal lives.
Yeah.
And what that means is that it gets baked into people's consciousness, people who aren't paying that much attention to elections or to politics, that it doesn't actually matter. So they don't feel a need to like question their beliefs and like think about the veracity of certain sources of information to figure out who is going to actually, which candidate is going to actually do what, which policy is actually going to change things.
Yeah.
They just assume that it won't matter.
And yes, keep finish.
Well, I'm going to transition, but if you want to add something.
Well, because then this goes into the other part here where people don't also know the operations of the government.
Correct.
So like during the 2010 protests against Obama, they were saying, keep your government hands off my Medicare. That's unbelievable that people would say stuff like that, but that's what their signs were saying. Keep your government hands off my Medicare. Government is Medicare is government.
Totally.
They don't know though.
Totally. I mean,
and so
yeah, I mean, an example, a more recent example that's happening now after Trump got elected is I saw one anecdote online, at least, maybe this is false, but it's something that could make sense because of his policies, of a boss bringing his employees into a room and being like, hey, we're going to have to cancel bonuses this year because we need to spend the money we have and the time we have for the rest of the year stockpiling on parts because prices are about to go up because of tariffs.
That's not totally an anecdote. We have data that companies are currently stockpiling. The bonuses thing might be an anecdote, but we do know that companies are stockpiling material.
And that certainly could affect actual people's lives.
Yes.
And so then the question becomes, right, like we're in an environment where information, where facts and data about what will happen and what policy will do has become almost worthless, and literally worthless to a large swath of the population.
Yes.
What replaces it are vibes, okay? And this is the sad state that we are currently in with politics.
Yeah.
And this is something that I feel a lot of empathy for Anthony specifically about, because this is a man who loves talking about policy. This is a math nerd who loves to understand what's actually going to happen. And I like it too. Like I like to be curious about the boring nitty-gritty stuff. But if the re-election of Donald Trump should tell you anything, it is that vibes matter more than anything else.
Of course. But I want to really go, because this centrist think tank is called the Third Way, okay? And they are what was behind Bill Clinton in the 90s. This is Bill Clinton's thing, the Third Way movement. they have been wrong for 20 years. They have been wrong for so long. And it's because the moderate theory of elections is no longer true.
Yep.
We used to live in a world where the person who was more towards the center won. Even in 2016, Donald Trump was viewed as the less extreme candidate. And that's one of the reasons he won. Well, guess what, guys? In 2024, Kamala Harris was viewed as the less extreme candidate. And I'll put those exit poll numbers on the results of the screen right now. What does that tell us? It means that Americans want something quote unquote extreme. They don't know what that means. They don't know what they want, but they want change. And they think Trump is an agent of change. And you running a middle of the road centrist who's going to try to appeal to moderates, let me tell you something, that's not going to inspire anybody to think that you are going to make change.
I think you're right about the desire for change because, again, social media does such a good job at making people angry and making people feel like the status quo is bad. But also, I think part of the desire for extremism is like extremism can come off as authentic. Like,
so true.
Bernie Sanders is the obvious example where when Bernie talks, or AOC, when they talk, their politics are actually well aligned with their vision of what the future should be. But Kamala Harris is a normal politician in that she plays scared. Like when you talk about, oh, she's giving you a tax credit here and stuff, like she wants to support Obamacare, she wants to maintain Obamacare, she's playing scared. She's always playing scared. And everybody now, like, we are too exposed to these candidates, especially in forums where they're supposed to be personable, like Trump going on the Joe Rogan podcast, where it matters to be likable. We are much more in high school popularity contest version of American national politics than anything else.
And that's not where I want to be. Listen, if it was up to me, every American would get sent a 400-page book about each candidate, and you read both, and then you pick the book that you like more. If that was up to me, that's how we do elections.
Yeah.
That would be it. That's not the world we live in,
No.
okay? You need to be able to inspire, and Kamala Harris could not, and any centrist will not be able to inspire anyone or anything. And a great example of this is Kamala Harris's entire campaign, her whole theory of the case was, I'm going to appeal to independent moderates and I'm going to appeal to Republican women and they're going to come out and they're going to vote for me. She lost Republicans more in 2024 than Joe Biden lost them in 2020.
And this is insane. This is a post-January 6th election.
And she couldn't even peel back more Republicans than Joe Biden post January 6th.
Yeah.
It is unreal. And it should prove to everyone that this third way theory of the case, this moderate theory, is just blatantly wrong.
It's bullshit. The last thing I'll say is that Democrats, again, they will go back to the drawing board and they'll be like, what does our messaging need to change? What can we do with policy to appeal more to this certain group that we lost voters with? It is more about the delivery than it is about the message. And you need someone who can deliver, you need a showman, you need a demagogue of your own.
And you know what else you need? You need to be building connections throughout the years and not just during election time. We talked on one of our last episodes about, Kamala Harris maybe making inroads to rural America. It's not enough to show up 3 months before an election and make inroads in rural America. You need to be there every month of every year, showing up, knocking on doors, hosting community events, building community, building the bonds, showing the ties, building your vision from the ground up with local community members and making it clear what you want to do if you get power in this country. That's what you have to do year round. It is a year-long project. Politics is not something that you pick up off the shelf every 4 years and then go back to sleep when it's over. It's a lifestyle. And the Democratic Party doesn't treat it like that. And these third-way goons don't treat it like that either.